સેટિંગમાં હોય જ નહીં એટલે it is obviously
it is never on like indoor તો આના માટે rarely થતા હોય. There is a
Managing
day care
plant
procedure, surgical procedure also, but that is also day care.
કિરણભાઈ અત્યારે કશું પણ થઈ શકે પ્લાન્ટર ફેક્સાઇટી રિફર્ડ ફ્રેમ ચેસ્ટ પેઇન છે અને શરીર 24 કલાક ઓબ્ઝર્વેશન
મેડિક્લેમ માં તો રાખવું પડે.
depends on Medicare.
24 કલાક સુધી સેટ કરવું પડે પછી. So I
આઈવા
start.
જીવનના પ્લાન્ટર ફેસિલિટીઝ એવું લખીને એડમિટ કરેલો હોય છે.
So what is plantar fasciitis? It is the most common cause of plantar heel pain. The exact pathology is not known, but it is secondary to myxoid degeneration, micro tears in the plantar fascia, collagen necrosis because of the overuse, and angiofibroblastic hyperplasia of the plantar aponeurosis. The interesting fact about it is not due to any inflammatory process of the plantar fascia. So I will come to this again in the treatment part.
what is the incidence by the rural public because this is a very common
Very common, very common.
very common
If you see 10 patients in orthopedic OPD, 2 will be of plantar fasciitis.
in general what is the incidence sir?
Extremely high.
There
There is no, I have not seen any of.
2 in
In
10.
US population, I saw one of the literature which said 1 million patients in OPD, in orthopedic OPD per year.
અને એમને એજ વાઇઝ અને સેક્સ વાઇઝ કંઈ પ્રિવેલન્સ રેટ કે એક્સિડન્સ રેટ ખરું?
Age wise, it is more common in between 20 to 40 years, and sex wise, it is more common in females. It is more common in postpartum females because of the sudden increase in weight. So that is one of the factor. Obesity, sudden increase in weight, then flat feet, pes planus is also secondary flat feet is there. One is congenital, which patients are having. Congenital flats will not have plantar fasciitis because the plantar fascia is stretched since birth. But when the patient has secondary flat foot, after 40 years of age, there are degenerative changes in the plantar fascia also, plus tibialis posterior muscle also. So the tibialis posterior muscle gets dysfunctional. In that case, there is flattening of the aponeurosis and the arch, the medial arch. In that patient also, plantar fasciitis is seen after 40 years of age. And mostly it is also, I say it is an occupational hazard for the patients who wear that safety shoes, then who are working continuously for prolonged standing or prolonged walking. That patients are, for them it is like occupational hazard. And
what
not
about in the United States who are working in the malls or shops?
Yeah, they are very
They
prone
do not provide any sitting arrangement.
sitting arrangement.
They have to what
They are not, actually they are not allowed to sit. If they
Not allowed to
sit. And so that is why it's similar. If such patient comes to me, I tell them this is an occupational hazard for you, having a plantar fasciitis. Even for safety shoes people, they are not allowed. Even if they have very severe plantar fasciitis, they cannot wear any insole inside because with the insole the shoes gets very tight, and they are not allowed to wear sports shoes for even certain amount of time. Even if I write some consent, it is letter that they cannot wear safety shoes because it is for their safety only, but it is not allowed. So that is the problem. So
what is about association with diabetes?
diabetic, there is no clear association like that.
સો સપોઝ કે નોર્મલ હેલ્ધી 100 પોસ્ટપાર્ટમ ફિમેલને તમે ફોલો કરો તો તમારા એસ્ટિમેટ પ્રમાણે તેમાંથી કેટલા 25 ને 50 ને 70 ને કેટલાને પ્લાન્ટર ફેસિલિટીસ થતું હશે?
Mostly who are not able to lose weight postpartum are mostly around 20 to 25 years old. That is my observation, not any study.
Now forget about that. I was just asking your issue.
The common presentations are gradual onset of pain over the medial side, which is more noticeable in the first few steps in the morning, and it might get better after a short period of walking, but it can also come back when there is prolonged weight bearing, such as standing, walking or running. So the basic anatomy. So the plantar fascia runs from the medial calcaneal process to the first toe. So the most of the load falls on it on the medial edge from this area. So as the plantar fascia helps to uphold the arch of the foot, when there is a stretch, when there is weight bearing or increased and prolonged standing, there is stretch of the plantar fascia. So most lesion occurs at the origin, which is at the medial calcaneal process, and it is also loaded when there is a windlass mechanism, like when we have forefoot in dorsiflexion dorsiflexion, like when they are running, jumping, such activities can increase the incidence of plantar fasciitis. So any factor that mechanically load the plantar fascia is considered as a risk factor. So there are such intrinsic factors like obesity, sudden increase in weight, pes planus primary or secondary, but more common in secondary. Pes planus is flat feet. Reduced range of ankle allowance. This reduced range of ankle allowance is seen after any injury like ankle sprain or fracture of the ankle or anything around foot and ankle. So after the rehabilitation, everything is done. Patients are very prone to have plantar fasciitis. Tight calf muscles. These tight calf muscles are very common in obese and short people. So who are not mobile, who are not doing lot of flexibility exercise, or inherently they have more tight calf muscles. And tight intrinsic foot muscles. Tight intrinsic foot muscles are seen in the patient with flat feet. So extrinsic factors like running barefoot, walking barefoot. This is very common in housewives. So they do all the work by running around all day at home barefoot. So that itself increases their chance of having plantar fasciitis. Running on a flat surface, prolonged standing walking, and when there is an increased intensity of running. So this is a typical class of patients who are preparing for some police examinations or practical army training or anything. They come with sudden increase in pain in the plantar fascia and they are diagnosed with plantar fasciitis. Sometimes it is so severe that we have to tell them to rest for a few weeks, which they cannot afford. So I've seen one or two patients who were from my area who came to me. There were like 5 patients together. Everyone was having plantar fasciitis. Everyone was preparing for PSA examination. So out of 5, 2 had to drop the idea of getting into this examination because the pain was so severe. They were not able to walk also.
You said
This
this
is
is
because of-
dorsiflexion.
Yeah, dorsiflexion, like this 4-foot running, whenever there is, without training they are doing running. So ideally it should be like this. But if they are not trained well, they put more focus on the 4-foot because it increases your speed when you are not trained enough. So because of this 4-foot running, there is increased chance of plantar fascia stretch and pain.
Apart from which is the typical side of pain of plantar fasciitis?
Over the medial calcaneal process or medial side of the hip. If you have to trace that one point where patient is having pain, trace the posterior border of the tibia or the medial malleus, posterior medial malleus. Trace it towards the hip and press it there. Patient will have maximum pain over there. I will show you. This is the posterior. This is the medial malleus. So this is the posterior border of tibia. You go here, you go down, and this is the point of the medial calcaneal spur. So here, if you press that, that is the origin of the plantar fascia. Patient will have maximum pain over there. Patient might have pain from anywhere from first toe to this region, anywhere over the medial side. It can also go on the lateral side if patient is also having some component of flat feet. Then it can get diffused on the other parts. Radio imaging has very limited role. Usually it is a clinical diagnosis. We don't go for radio imaging. But for some cases, patients are very much insisted upon seeing bone growth. They are told by many people that hard to pain. Yeah, so they want to see if there is a bone growth. So they insist on doing X-ray. So X-ray, there is a difference. Heel spur is because of the traction forces which applies by plantar fascia. It does not cause plantar fasciitis. So there is one condition which is called Haglund deformity. It is a different entity from plantar fasciitis. The presentation is also very different. In that there is a growth of the bone over the superior process of the calcaneum bone over tendo-Achilles tendon. So patient will have typical pain in this region. You might observe swelling and tenderness in this region. In that case, there is a traction and there is continuous friction of the tendo-Achilles muscle by this increased bony growth, which is called Haglund deformity. That needs a surgical intervention where we have to trim the part of the superior calcaneal process, which is giving friction to the tendo-Achilles tendon, because in some cases, in the old chronic cases, it can also cause tendo-Achilles tear. So for that, to look for heel spur, but heel spur again is not a directly attached or associated with the plantar fascia. You can monitor the severity of the plantar fasciitis. There is thinning of plantar fascia if you get a USD. Normal thickness is around 4 mm. So if there is any thinning of the plantar fascia, it can give you some idea of the plantar fasciitis. If it is less than 2 mm or 1 mm thickness, then it is very severe plantar fasciitis. These patients may need some other interventions, surgical interventions. And it can also exclude other differential diagnoses like fibromatosis and heel pad contusion. This is the most common diagnosis when the orthopedic surgeon advises some patient to go for USD, which is fibromatosis. There is a thickening of the plantar fascia over the medial calcaneus spur. There will be obvious swelling over the plantar fascia, and again this fibromatosis might require some laser treatment for its removal. So coming to the main part, which is treatment.
Any systemic disease association of that fibromatosis?
No. It is because of overuse, wear and tear. You can say it is a severe form of plantar fasciitis. The most important part in the treatment from my point of view is patient education. First thing, for the patient retention, you have to tell the patient that it minimum takes 6 to 8 months to recover. No matter how much is the duration of the plantar fasciitis when the patient is presenting to us. Even if the patient is saying, I have pain only for 1 week, still you have to explain the patient that it will take 6 to 8 weeks if your clinical diagnosis is correct. There are high chances of recurrence, and fascia, like any other fascia, it is a fibrous tissue, and all the fibrous tissue are very much sensitive to the pressure changes in the environment. So whenever there is monsoon or whenever there is winter, when there are pressure changes in the environment, there is a tendency that the pain of the plantar fasciitis will increase. This we have to explain to patient.
What I have read regarding this thing, that only 90% of patients recover at the end of 1 year.
True.
Only 90% of.
Because there is the treatment, what I am going to tell is very tedious. Patients don't follow this. That is why I have started. Whenever I see the patient of plantar fasciitis, in the top of my prescription I write this. It will take 6 to 8 weeks to recover. Medicines has very less role, very limited role. I will come to that why medicines have very limited role. And even all these injections like steroid injection, PRP injection also have very limited role and very specific and selective. Not all the patients respond to the treatment. So basically it is all going to be activity modification, exercise, orthotics and everything. And all these patients don't follow that regularly. That is why it takes very long. There are high chances of recurrence and patients don't feel satisfied. These are the patients who will show minimum 4 doctors. Fracture patient will show only 1 doctor. Plantar fasciitis will show 5 doctors. Because they are never satisfied. Because this pain is also very severe whenever there is pain. So the first thing is activity modification. So for the cardiovascular patients we have advised the patients to go for brisk walking or running. And if they have developed plantar fasciitis following brisk walking, then we have to advise patient to discontinue that for at least 6 to 8 weeks till the tenderness is relieved over the plantar fascia. So till that time the next question will be, સાહેબ તમે તો કીધું અમને ચાલવાનું નહીં ચાલે તો અમારા હાર્ટ રિસ્ક વધી જશે તો એનું શું કરવાનું? Then you have to give alternative to patients like cycling, swimming, which is not a very practical options for our patients because they don't know swimming. Cycling also they are not much comfortable, but that is what evidence says that you have to give alternate options to patients apart from brisk walking or running. This is very important that we can teach patients, which is plantar fascia stretch and ice massage. So there are typical presentations of patient, as I already said, that whenever the patient puts first foot on the land, there is lot of pain. So what patients can do, they have to dorsiflex the great toe. So this plantar fascia will become evident. After that, I am ensuring that it is taught, you have to stretch it for at least 30 seconds and repeat it for 3 times every day in the morning. So that is how the plantar fascia will get relaxed. And after that, when they put first foot on the land, they will not have a lot of pain. So this is how they can reduce the intensity of pain in the morning time. The other thing that you have to do at the end of the day is they have to take such can like this, freeze it in the freezer, and then roll the foot over that. So that will also relieve the, for 5 to 10 minutes, that will relieve the plantar fascia pain and swelling. This is another important thing to reduce the morning incidences of pain and all the full throughout the day full comfortable walking is night sprinting. Plantar flexion of the foot increases the pain in the morning. So what we have to do, we have to give dorsiflexion night splint to this patient. This is easily available on all the surgical stores in the Amazon. It is called dorsiflexion splint, dorsiflexion ankle splint. Removable, patient can wear it on himself, remove in the daytime. So they have to sleep with this. So what they will do, there will be continuous dorsiflexion, so less stretch on the plantar fascia. So night splint provide outcomes and resolution of symptoms within 12 weeks of use, and it shows result within 4 weeks of use. No matter how severe the plantar fascia is, patient will feel comfortable. So this one thing and these two things, I would say 50 to 60% pain relief without any medicines can be done by these two exercises. One is night splint and one is stretch, plantar stretch and ice massage.
throughout night play time.
Throughout night play કરી રાખવાનું સવારે કરી.
How much degree of flexion you give to the foot?
Now this is 90 degree only.
90 degree.
9 is in the neutral position. Dorsiflexion is neutral position. We have a natural tendency of plantar flexion and external rotation of our foot whenever we are resting. So we want to avoid that. For that, if we give this splint, it will stay in neutral position. If we don't give splint, it will stay in some plantar flexion and external rotation. The other thing is contrast bath. For contrast bath, in one bucket they have to take hot water, one bucket they have to take cold water. 3 minutes they have to keep the foot in the hot water, 1 minute in the cold water. Then they have to repeat this cycle for 3 times. So 9 minutes in hot water, 3 minutes in cold water. This is how they can reduce the incidences, not the inflammation, but all the wear and tear of the plantar fascia and stretches the plantar fascia. And also improves in general mobility of the ankle joint.
Any rationale behind 3:1 ratio of hot and cold?
It is a generalized thing for every contrast. This is the concept of contrast bath developed by physiotherapists more than orthopedic surgeons. So whenever you tell any patient for any chronic condition to go for hot and cold bath, so whenever it causes alternate vasoconstriction, vasodilatation. So whenever you are doing this hot and cold, but the tolerance for cold is less for us than hot. So that is why to keep for lesser time for cold than hot. No other rationale. Mechanical use. This is also very important during the day time, and this is the most non-adherence thing for the patient because they don't follow this. First is heel pads. There are two things. One is medial arch support footwear and the other is heel pads. When the patient is having flat foot leading to plantar fasciitis, in such cases only this medial arch support helps. So there are many shoe companies who are promoting for plantar fasciitis this medial arch support shoes like Skechers. But it is not helpful, or it might increase your pain if you don't have flat foot and if you have plantar fasciitis. For such patients, it is more important to have heel pads. So heel pads, there are a lot of materials which are present like silicone and there are some rubber materials which are present. But there is one technical issue with the heel pad. So again, whenever if the patient is putting heel pad in the existing shoes, the shoes is going to get tight. And it gets tight on the forefoot and midfoot region. So patient might come back with the patients of the pain of the metatarsal region, or patient is not following that because it was very tight. You have to specifically tell the patient to remove the existing sole from your shoes and then apply this heel pad. Or use the thinner sole. You have to buy another sole and after that only you can use this heel pad. This is for medial arch support for the flat feet. These are the heel pads which patients can wear at home. Because whatever soft sole, ortho chappals which are available in market, whatever they are getting, the lifespan of such footwear is only 2 to 3 months. That is, I am saying maximum. But if once patient buys it, patient is going to use it till it's worn out. So it does not serve the purpose of the heel pad. So patient will typically tell you that initially it was all good, you gave me treatment, everything was alright for 1 month, now I am again back to normal. Now I am wearing my chappal, still it is like anything like before also. You tell that patient to bring that chappal and you see the condition of that chappal, all that softness, everything is gone. So better you tell the patient to have such heel pads which can be wear on bare feet. So this is also again available in all the surgical stores and Amazon. So this will help, and also some patients feel that we should not wear chappals during at our home. So for that traditional thinking also this will help.
These are called heel pads.
Heel pads, yeah, heel pads. This comes with strapping, so you don't need to wear shoes, chappal over it. This is for shoes. This is for shoes, and you have to keep changing it once it is worn out. So the pharmacological treatment, only 20% to 30% part it plays in the treatment of plantar fasciitis. The evidence says that since it is not an inflammatory process, the question of the use of NSAID is in question, and recent studies show there is no significant difference between placebo and NSAIDs when it is given for this plantar fasciitis, and it gives only short-term relief. So whenever the patient is coming first to you, definitely you have to give some NSAIDs for initial, to break some inflammatory cycle, to break initial some pain, because it will definitely reduce the pain. But on the longer run, patient will not feel. Once the patient threshold is set for this NSAID, after that pain, even if the patient is taking the medicine, it will come back for pain.
So the question is that why there is plantar fasciitis and there is no inflammation?
Because it is a wear and tear like condition, like osteoarthritis. Whenever there is osteoarthritis in the knee joint, unless it is because of some inflammatory condition like rheumatoid arthritis or gouty arthritis, there is no as such inflammation. Whenever we go for knee replacement, we don't see any
So
inflammation.
such sort of wear and tear, body will not try to do some healing process there.
There is a chances of healing, but walking and standing is the process where there is a maximum load on the medial arch. So they don't usually get the time of healing. Plantar fascia. That is why
I am currently not exactly remembering, but this plantar fascia is little bit having blood supply as well, right? Or
Yes,
it is,
yes.
It's not completely avascular.
No, it is not.
It is having blood supply.
Yeah, but it is attached on the bony. That is why the pain is also on the bony prominence from where it is originating on the medial calcaneal process. Why we don't have pain over the great toe? Why we don't have pain over the medial arch of the foot? We only have pain on the typical heel, because that is where it is attached, and that is where there is maximum friction between bone and the fascia.
So there has to be some sort of inflammation, unless and until.
Some sort of inflammation, but inflammation is not the root cause of the plantar fasciitis. It is not an inflammatory process like contusion injury or some other. When, like, I will give you the similar example. Whenever there is a tennis elbow, it is a similar condition like plantar fasciitis, where there is the group of muscles. There it is a fascia. Here there is a group of muscles which attaches on the lateral humeral epicondyle. So this is an inflammatory process, tennis elbow, because of the overuse of your this dorsiflexion of your wrist joint or heavy weight lifting. It causes inflammation. Similarly, the plantar fasciitis is not an inflammatory process. It is a wear and tear. There is a collagen necrosis. There is some degeneration of the fascia, which is causing pain. So definitely NSAIDs will give relief, but not on the long run. Similar way, localized steroid injection will also give short-term relief, but it has a disadvantage of causing plantar fat atrophy, which will again give more pain on the longer run, and it can also cause plantar fascia rupture. So once one injection is sufficient if patient is having severe pain, because it will relieve pain. But repeated injection, because patient has a tendency, they come to me, they come to orthopedic surgeon, they ask for repeated injections because they feel better with this for few months at least. So they feel that I will take a
Many are giving as well.
but that is not advisable. So on a longer run, it will cause the more disadvantages. PRP injection stem cells, like any other part of the body, it is helpful here, but again the use is very limited, evidence is very limited. Physical therapy. This is reserved for the patients who are not responding to your conservative therapy. Extracorporeal wave therapy or IFT. IFT is an alternative because short wave therapy is not available with all the physiotherapists. So this do give all good results. So the next question patients ask you, for how long I have to do? Whenever I am doing this, I feel very comfortable, I am very good. But the moment I stop going for physiotherapy, I am the same. For that, first, all the physiotherapy have a tendency to and after that their budget will be short, they will stop going, and then again the patient will have pain, they will be dependent on NSAIDs. So for that, from the initial phase only, you have to tell you have to only go twice weekly if it is shockwave therapy or IFT, and after that this is again just the supplementary therapy, not the main therapy. The main therapy always going to remain the stretch exercise, footwear change, and contrast. Operative treatment, I have operated till now. I have operated 2 cases. It is only reserved for very long-term chronic cases who are not responding to anything. You get them USG, you see very thinned out plantar fascia. So you have to do plantar fasciotomy. It can be done with arthroscopy. Since it is not a joint, we don't call it arthroscopy, we call it endoscopy. So it is an endoscopy, plantar fascia is removed, where we
Again, say fascioscope.
fascioscope. So we just insert the scope from here. We take a 11 number knife and we release it. It's a short procedure. It can be done with open, but in open procedure there are chances of plantar nerve involved, plantar nerve damage. So we do it with the endoscope. Thank you.
So how this fasciotomy